Welcome to the session where we're going to discuss palms in their various forms. So we're going to discuss palms of individual and of several cards, from the top, from the center, from the bottom, into the right and the left hand, and each one will solve specific problems we run into when doing our card magic. So I invite you to take your deck and follow along. The first palm I would like to discuss is one which, in my opinion, is the most useful for palming the top card into your right hand. It comes from Vernon, known under the name of Topping the Deck. It was first published in a small booklet by Vernon, Select Secrets. Then it was redescribed in several other books, and I described it also in my Card College Volume 2. Now, the way it looks is a simple squaring up of the pack, which is dropped on the table or handed to a spectator, and the card is brought into the palm of the right hand. Now, before going into the technical details, let me mention Ascanio's work on the palm. When I was a young chap, I had a great chance of meeting Arturo de Ascanio. He adopted me as one of his sons, and I had the great pleasure and honor of translating one of his very first writings, which was on the psychology of palming. So if you are among the lucky few to find a lecture note by Ascanio on the psychology of palming, you will read translation from Spanish to English, Roberto Giobbi. So, and in there, he talks about the 6 phases of a palm. And that was an incredibly important thought for me, because I started to try to apply it to all of my magic. Let's see it specifically for the palm. The 6 phases of the palm are the pre-palm. Actually, almost every technique has a pre-technique. That is the thoughts that go into how to prepare the deck for the actual palm. Then the second phase is to find a justification why the card reaches for the deck. The third deals with the actual technicalities of the palm. Then the fourth problem is how to separate the palming hand from the deck. What goes first? How do you do it? The fifth problem is, once you have the card palmed, what do you do with it? How do you hold it? And the sixth and last problem is how to reproduce it from wherever it is needed, from a pocket or wherever, or how to replace it on the deck. So taking Vernon's Topping the Deck, let's look at the solution to each one of these problems. Now, first of all, before we even get into the pre-palm, let me say the way that we magicians use 95% of the palms is the classic palm. The classic palm is like this. So there's a diagonal pressure, as you can see here, on the card. The other 3 fingers are free. The thumb is free, is not going out like this, like a hook. It's on the hand. And now you have to practice for weeks and months to hold a card like this in your hand and do different actions, moving things. Try to hold the card palmed whenever you can during the day. Drink, using that, doing gestures, doing things like that. I mean, getting the feeling that the card belongs to the hand. So that will take a while, but meanwhile you can still start to understand and practice the other phases of this palm. Now, the pre-palm concerns itself with the preparation of the card to be palmed. In this particular case, I do a little movement, I push the card over just to make sure that if the deck has been used for a while, the cards sometimes clump and you don't get a clean push off. I even go that far that with older cards, I first obtain a break. So that will make the subsequent pushing over of the card much easier. So that's pre-palm considerations. Obviously, later when we're going to look at multiple palms, that's when more cards are being palmed, we need to establish a break, etc. And all of this is the subject of the pre-palm phase. Now the second phase is, how do we justify the hand coming to the deck? normally it doesn't make sense to hold a deck with two hands. Might as well put it on the table or just briefly in a transfer hold it with two hands. So there has to be a reason why the deck is picked up in the first place and why the other hand comes to help. So different scenarios which can be used. For instance, the deck is spread on the table. You could even consider this a pre-palm phase, because now you can go into the second phase, which is picking it up. Of course, this is the perfect moment which is necessary for the palm. Same thing, the card could be fanned with a comment saying 52 different cards. Now we close the fan and we are in perfect position for the palm. We can dribble the cards, come back to square them. Again, we are in perfect position for the palm. We can fan them between the hands. There are many versions. You can make a list, try to find 10 different ways of handling cards that justify the fact of the right hand coming over the other hand and holding the deck for a moment with two hands. Now let's look at the mechanics of the palm, which is the third phase of the palm, of any palm. What is happening, let me do this in open, is that the card is slightly pushed over like this, which results in this corner protruding over the outer end. And if you push like here, look what happens, the card will pop up. So if you do this, you push here, the card will pop up. And that's what we are going for, but we want to get into the position in an absolutely imperceptible way. For this, we are using a handling which we want the spectator to recognize as just this harmless handling. And the handling is this. Let's assume we have a slightly unsquared pack. The hand comes over the deck, lifts it up to elevated dealing position, where the left fingers can square the sides and the right fingers square the ends. And that will deliver the card into the palm. So there's a little reason to bring the hands together. The cards are squared in elevated dealing position, and it's in this moment that the card is being delivered into the palm. So let's see the micro movements of that. The first issue is how do we get the card into this angled position. Now for this, we have the middle finger, the right middle finger, which is positioned about the center of the outer end. And if the left thumb very slightly, and I emphasize very slightly, pushes in an arc, not straight, not to the front, in a slight arc, it's actually just a force being executed. Just a few millimeters are enough. Now, that much is absolutely enough to give us the necessary leverage to bring the card into the palm. So, this happens as the deck is brought up to elevated position. Now, to the spectator, it will look as if the deck shifts along the fingers. What really happens, it only hinges. That means this right side remains in constant contact with the fingers, while the left side slides up along the thumb. And this gives the optical illusion, so to speak, that the card, that the deck is being lifted, and this gives an impression of lightness, of apparently having no control, but it's in that moment that the card is delivered into the palm. So let's now try to combine these two ideas. So we have whatever reason to come to the deck to square it. At this very moment, the thumb pushes very slightly, so it's almost not perceptible that there is a movement of the thumb in an arc. The deck is lifted to elevated dealing position. At the same time, the little finger presses down, which will already bring the card to like 75% into the palm. And we finish that with a light push of these fingers on the face of the card. So that results in this final situation, which we are going to emphasize or render optically more harmless by bending in, yes, the outer phalange of the forefinger. Look at that. Rather than holding the deck like this, we are holding it like this. The card is now in perfect palm position, held, as we've seen at the beginning, with diagonal pressure, with the forefinger bent in, which leaves a nice little distance here, a nice little hole to look through, and this makes the hand look really harmless. Now again, we have an angle to protect, and it's the same as we've seen in other sessions. Our friend, the forefinger, will help us, so I'm going to direct this forefinger, imagining it is a line. I'm going to direct it to the right ear of the spectator on my far left. So I'm going to, if I have spectators here, I'm going to do that. And to justify that, I might say, sir, would you be so kind and please shuffle the cards? So there's always a reason for the body to get into that position so it doesn't look awkward. Now, we will see this with a close-up camera very nicely, and you can see when the moment sets in and the card becomes invisible. So this is something you can practice in front of a mirror also, or use your own camera to record yourself, and then you be able in a short time to find out exactly the correct angle where the hand has to be held. So this is the technical part, the mechanical part. You can try a little ruse which consists in pushing the top card just a hairbreadth to the front. I'm going to exaggerate it now like this. You can see it. I just a little, you know, it's just it's a fraction of a thing. It's just a little thing like that. And that enormously facilitates the popping up of the card. So let me do this like this and go like this. You can turn the deck if you like that and put it over like this. We'll see that as we progress in the next phase. You can try also to cover the movement with other movements. For instance, Ron Bauer had an excellent idea of riffling the outer end, riffling them, and as the card goes down, in this up and down movement, this is an excellent cover to execute the palm. We do that again here. So let's look at the next phase, which asks which hand should move first. Let's assume we have our card now in the palm. How should we move? Should we put the hand like this and then give the deck? Should we move both hands? Now, as a rule, which will have its exceptions occasionally, but as a rule, we want to move the other hand a fraction of a second before we move the palming hand. Now, why is that? Because the eye follows the movement. And so if we move this one first, the eye will follow this. If we move at the same time, the mind will have a choice and 50% will look on the hand. Whereas if I move the deck first, like this, sir, would you please be so kind and shuffle the cards? The attention will be on this hand rather than the other hand. So that's usually the idea of separating the pack. You can also drop it on the table. Here is a little hint I was told by my dear friend Bernard Billis, and attributed Fred Capps. He used that a lot apparently. Rather than putting the deck on the table, we just stop a centimeter or so above the table and let the deck drop. Look how good this looks. Rather than putting it straight, this has a uglier feeling to it. So that brings us to the next phase, which is what the heck do we do once we get that card here? Now there are different strategies which can be divided into two subcategories, that is gestures and poses. Now, the difference is that poses will be rather, static, so it could be situations like this, or if you're standing, situations like that, or if you stay, you can put if you have a chair or whatever, and you're standing, you can put your hands like this. If you are sitting at the table, you can put your hand like that. You can even fold your hand if you wanted to. You go like this, and you just fold your hand and keep them like this. And of course, you have to be very careful not to flash the cards in any of these situations. You can reach and grab for an object and hold it there and say, I have a prediction here. You can make a list of again 10 postures which are natural to you, which feel comfortable for you, and it's very, very easy to come up with them. You just look at yourself, in daily situations and see what you're doing, what poses you have, what your favorite way of holding the cards are, of holding the hands are, and maybe you like to be in this position. This might not be that good, but you will come up with your own movements. And the second category are actually movements. These are very short. Normally a movement can take a second. So usually you will need like 2 or 3 in a row and combine them in a logical, natural looking way, and then maybe combine these 2 or 3 moments with a pose. So let's assume again we have the card in the palm. You say, sir, would you please be so kind and shuffle the cards? You can adjust the tie if we have one. You can go and open your jacket and take out a wallet or something to write. So these are all gestures that are possible, and that you can again look at yourself, how you move in life, and then try to see if this is a gesture that would be fitting to use with the palm cards. Now, once we have solved this problem, we know what to do with the card. How do we replace the card? That's our 6th and last problem. So let's look at this in 2 categories. First of all, how to replace it, and then how to reproduce it from some whatever pockets. So replacement strategies. First of all, you must take care that the card is not bent too much. Now, at the beginning, you will find that the card gets an incredible bend, and you will sweat because maybe of nervousness and fear, and your card will be deformed in a very ugly way. But after a while, after a few weeks, you've practiced and you start to become confident with the move, you will see that correct palming does really not affect the condition of the card. It keeps pretty flat. So here are a few ways that you can use to replace the cards. So once the deck has been taken back, you say, you shuffle the cards, but of course, cutting is always better if you don't mind. And it's in the action of cutting that we replace the card. Now, the way to do it is similar than if you were squaring the deck, which would be another cover. We're going to look in just a few seconds. And this to come from the back. Use that thumb describes an arc, comes from the back and seizes the packet, because that avoids this the tendency. There is an intuitive tendency, let's say, to do that, to shoot out that thumb in order to release the card. That has to be fought. And when Vernon talks about the palms in his lectures, he used to say the best way of doing it is just describing this little arc. So you go like this, and this is the most imperceptible way I found to use this type of replacement. Now you can use this type of replacement again by just taking the cards from the spectator. The moment you take them, you hold them like this, which puts them in a slightly unsquared condition. There's a perfect reason to come over and square the pack, and then they're coming over, again using exactly the same technique as detailed, the card is replaced. Again, other technique is, if the deck is on the table, to spread it and say, would you please be so kind and take any card from this pack. Now if the card is a little bent, a nice way to misdirect from that, of course, is to spread like this, and as soon as the hand moves over, use this hand to start to tap the cards and put them in slight disorder, that this will catch the audience's attention and also their eye, and therefore nobody's going to look if this card is now a little bit more bent than the rest of them. And these were a few ways of replacing palm cards on the deck. Let's next talk about the one-hand top palm. Now, as the term says, it is executed with one hand. It comes from the card from the top, and here is how it looks from your side. The card goes in an apparently invisible movement, leaves the deck and goes into the right-hand classic palm. Now, let's see how to do that specifically. Now, the deck needs to be in a fairly squared condition. It's held in a closed end grip. And the little finger, that's the first thing, goes with its pad, touches the top of the deck. You can see I'm going to exaggerate this for clarity. The little finger flattens out. Actually, this will not be seen if you do it correctly afterwards within the larger action, but this is what happens. And the deck is slightly moved like this. Now, this movement produces a slight beveling of the cards at the same time. That this beveling plus the pushing down and forward in a little arc. You don't push straight forward, not to the right. You push in an arc like so. It's really minute pressure points. Will disengage the card from the remaining of the deck and catapult it directly into the classic palm. So these are the mechanics of the one-hand top palm, and the ideal situation is, of course, to create the correct context. So one would be addressing a spectator, saying, "Sir, would you be so kind and please shuffle the cards?" So it's in this movement that the palm happens. Again, we want to be at a movement to the left rather than a movement on the right, because we do, of course, have an angle from this side which we need to protect. An excellent way of using the one on top out is, of course, standing up, because then your hand with the deck hangs down from the body, and you can even turn like this and the body covers even the whole hand. Or if you turn like this, you still have perfect cover, and as the hand is hanging down, you can execute with great facility and absolutely invisibly the one on top palm. Of course, you can combine it if you have several packets and you have two packets and you're going to cross like this and exchange the packets. So in the action you can do that. And as you will see, depending on the trick where you want to use this palm, there are so many ways to beautifully cover the one-hand top palm. So these were some considerations on the one-hand top palm. Let's get to another top palm, also one-handed, but in the other hand, which can become very convenient in certain situations. And we call it the Professor Lowey palm. Lowey was a magician, was born in Vienna and then immigrated to the USA, and the move was first described by Hilliard in Greater Magic in the 40s, but not attributed to him. Later the credit was reinstalled, and I put it in my stand-up card magic because I think it's a very useful palm, especially if you stand up. But let's look at how at the mechanics. The mechanics are this: the deck is held in dealing position. Usually, if you read the older books, the deck has to be shifted to this position, and then the top card is being swiveled into the palm. Now, fortunately, Edward Marlo comes to our rescue. He had a beautiful idea of avoiding this shifting of the pack by simply opening the hand. Look, if you just hold the deck in dealing position, you relax the grip, the cards will slide forwards, the deck will bevel, and automatically just give a slight turn. This corner will perfectly fit into the position it needs to be. Now, the thumb swivels the card, the other hand comes from the outer end and fixes the card just for a moment so that the left hand can now take the card into the grip necessary to retain it when the deck is taken away and shown like this. So, here is how the action is. Would you please be so kind and shuffle the deck? So it's you can come up with different ideas, or you can turn over the pack and spread it out. That's an action that would justify the situation. Of course, if you're standing up and you have the eyesight of the audience like that, it's the perfect palm. You can be executed really absolutely invisibly and in a natural way, just turning a little bit like so, and in the action of directing your eyes at the spectator, the hand comes back, reaches for the remainder of the deck. A brief blocking of the thumb assures a firm and secure grip on the palm card, and then you take the card away as the left hand drops. Again, it's important that the deck moves a second or so before the left hand drops. So don't drop the hand and then move the deck, but first draw attention to the spot the deck is going to move. That's half of the misdirection. And then take the deck and go like this and dropping the hand. Now, although it's a very good palm standing up and for parlor and stage, it's also very useful for certain situations at the table. So that does the Lowey top palm. Let's now discuss various methods of palming cards, not from the top, but from the bottom. They can be used for single cards or for several cards. Now look at the Tempi. I call it Tempi Palm. That's a title I gave it in stand-up card magic, because it's not done in one time. It's done in 2 times. While I give the deck to a spectator, sir, would you please take the cards? And the palm has been executed. Now, Tempi, referring to 2 times, it's instead of doing it in one moment, it's subdivided in 2 moments. Now, the first time the concept appears in the literature is in Hugo's Moore Card Manipulation number 4, and it's there called The Bottom Palm Simplified. That's already 1941. And then we have Marlo, Edward Marlo, as so often, who publishes his handling in Action Palm in 1956, and again in Card to Wallet in 1961. And the idea is, in all these cases, practically the same, that the cards are angled in a first action. The excuse is found to move away with the hand by gesturing, saying something, and only in a second time is the deck placed into the left hand. Now, once the cards are in this position, and they can easily be retained by the fingers and the thumb, once it is in this position, when the deck is placed into the hand, the cards fall practically automatically in position for the classic palm. So you only need to close the hand in a natural way for grabbing the deck, and the card have been placed in an almost perfect way in the classic palm position. Now, the good thing about this palm and other bottom palms, that we do not necessarily need to rush. We don't need to, take the hand away. We can leave it for a moment, and that can be the opportunity to make slight adjustment. So when the hand, for instance, takes the deck or gives it a slight square up move or so, the thumb can briefly hit the inner side of the card and push or square the cards in case they should not be in perfect position. So that was the Tempi Palm. Another very clever way of managing the bottom palm comes from Art Altman and was published in Marlo's Magic Magazine, Volume 4. And it occurs in the very harmless action of multiple cutting or double cutting or triple cutting a deck in the hands or on the table, and delivers automatically the cards in the classic palm. This is very similar to the Tempi Palm, which we just discussed before, because through the action of the cuts, we are bringing the cards to be palmed into the correct position to fit the palm. So here's how it works. We obtain first a separation beneath the necessary cards. So let's say we want to have several cards, like 4 cards to palm. So we either use a little finger count, or we push off, or we have spread the cards, and when we close the spread we obtain the break, or we use a ruse where we say, my grandfather used to show me all these counting tricks. I don't do anything like that. You put it back like that and retain the break. So if you think about it, then you will come up with a huge list of actions that will allow you to imperceptibly and elegantly get the separation under the necessary cards. Now here comes the double. Let's first take a double cut, undercut action. We can adapt it to a multiple undercut afterwards. Cut about half the deck to the top and put it slightly askew like so on top of all. Now the situation from behind is that we are still having a break. The thumb is retaining the break above under the separated cards, and we get into this situation, which already you can guess it. It already angles the card in the necessary position. Then we cut all the cards beneath the break to the top. You only have to take care to cover this angle here, which is easily done by the fingers of the right hand. And now look, you end up more or less in a position like this. Now when the left hand completes the second cutting action and seizes the pack, it's in perfect position for the little finger to just grab this corner and bring the cards into the correct position. Again, if there should be a little bit of a shift necessary afterwards in a slight squaring action, the set of cards can be moved into the necessary position. And this is the double undercut palm. Let's next discuss the end over end bottom palm. There's another action palm being a term coined by Edward Marlo, who very well recognized that there were 2 categories of moves. There are the moves where you have an external action that the spectator perceives. In a double lift, you're really turning over a card. In a false cut, you're really cutting the cards. But then there are some categories of techniques where you apparently don't do much, like just maybe squaring the deck, and that's where you do a palm or a pass or a side steal, a few other sides you're going to look at. So those slides that do not have this natural external cover, they are more difficult to execute, especially they put more fear to the performer, because they say, oh, I'm not doing anything, and they're going to see that. So normally there is more apprehension in the execution of that. So one solution, of course, is to try to create an artificial action and to put that on top. So Marlo called these action techniques. So here's as a perfect example for the end over end bottom palm. We're turning the pack, which we're holding in the pan, we're turning that over and putting it on a deck. Maybe we are spreading them, and in the action we executed the palm. Now let's look at how this works. It was first published by Ed Marlo in 35 years later. We are obtaining again a separation under the necessary cards to be palmed, which at the moment are on top. And it's in the action of turning the deck end over end that the following thing happens. The little finger kicks the separated cards out. So they are slightly angled, like we've seen with the step and similar techniques. So this happens in the action of doing this end-for-end palm. I'm going to expose it here slightly. You can see the edge coming over. And the interesting thing, although it is a very small movement, is that it perfectly comes into position to be palmed when the left hand closes with the left little finger engaging the protruding corner, and simply in the act of closing the hand, the cards are brought into classic palm position. So let me show this again. First in slow motion, as slow as it possible to do. There the angling starts, you go like this, the cards go down. They can be squared. Again, in the square up, you can adjust the cards if need should be, and then the deck can be spread, handed over, or anything else being done, and the cards are perfectly palmed in your left hand. So that's the end-for-end bottom palm by Marlo. We come to a different category of palm, which I'd like to show you in an example. The example is I'm going to dribble the cards like this, and would kindly ask you to say stop whenever you want. Stop here, ace of spades, very good. Let's please take the card, and that is a force at the same time, and the palm. So the card starts out at the bottom of the pack, and the palm you're going to use is called the gambler's cup. Then the gambler's cup is the fastest palm that probably exists, because the card is not even brought to a specific position, it's simply held. So the palming of the card held in gambler's cup looks approximately like this. I say approximately because you will have to adapt this to your hand, and you will have to see the situation. So one situation this is being used is this. This is one situation. If I turn over like that, this must feel very good. You know, if it feels good, the grip is correct. And this allows for immediate palms from the bottom and keeping hand on the table, and very simple replacements to the bottom again. And this is what I've been using in this particular force. The card is brought into gambler's cup palm. As I dribble the cards, here it is, I miscall it. I say, oh, there's ace of spades. Then as I look up, I come up to square and show the card or extract it. There is one thing to consider with the gambler's cup. You will find that if you cup it directly like this corner might protrude from this part of your hand, depending on how big or how small your hand is. So in order to avoid that, we first buckle the card, and as the deck is moved forward, the left forefinger just kicks it slightly, almost imperceptible movement, a fraction of an inch to the back, which results in a perfect positioning of the playing card within the hand. So this, and of course it's a perfect palm to be used for several cards. So go like this, and you get perfect cup palm. It's also an excellent palm to use if you're standing up as the hand hangs down from the body, and look in a mirror, and you will soon find the angles which give you the optimum cover. So that was the gambler's cup palm. We come to another very useful bottom palm, which I've dubbed the Vernon-Erdnase bottom palm, and it is done as the hands are brought together in a short moment with a minimum of movement. The bottom card or cards are moved into bottom card position. Now this is a variation of a palm that can be found in Erdnase, which required a stronger movement of the fingers, but here is how it can be minimized. You separate, whether it's one card or several, the card to be palmed from the remainder of the pack, and we are sending it like with the Lowey palm. You remember we send the deck into this position. We are in a slight action either one-handed or two-handed, we bring it to a position that the left corner goes into the fork of the thumb, so that the bottom card must only swivel slightly to be brought into classic palm position. So that's the first problem to solve, the separation, getting the deck into that position. Now once we have it in that position, is really a minimal movement which is required of the little finger. The little finger just moves in an arc inward. All the other fingers can stay motionless. And this brings the card into this position, and it's simply very slight movement, close the fingers, and the card is in a perfect bottom palm position. So let me show this again. Just reaching the palm, and just in a relaxed moment, nothing seems to happen, the cards get into the perfect bottom palm position to be either taken away, or you can leave the deck on the palm card and proceed according to the requirements of the effect. So this was the Vernon-Erdnase bottom palm. Let's finish off this section on bottom palms by just discussing how to replace cards to the bottom of the deck. Now, the Erdnase replacement is the one I've been using for many, many years, and the one I use most. So once the cards are in the bottom palm, whichever way they have been held out and now need to be replaced, here is what happens. The deck is put onto the palm cards, and when you do that, always remember to keep that forefinger here on the outer end like a normal dealing position. It's a perfect way to hide the cards from all angles practically, except from the very back, of course. It's my own angle, but I've seen this before, so it doesn't really matter. But above all, this finger gives the whole hand a natural looking position. There's no hook. The eye of the spectator, which looks over the situation, will be grabbed. So that's very important. Natural looking hand. Now the replacement is done in a harmless squaring action, which can be justified by dribbling a few cards. Now this is the reason for the other hand to join the deck, and if you move the little finger to the side and then move downwards and upwards, automatically, due to the positioning of the fingers and the fulcrum created by the fingers and the pressures, the cards will automatically align with the bottom of the deck. So let me show that again. So I'm here in slow motion. Once you move the little finger and just push a little bit upward, the rest is automatic. The rest just follows along, and the cards will be perfectly replaced. We've already seen the replacement from the gambler's cop, obviously. Go here. There's another replacement we find in Erdnase to the bottom, but that goes from a top palm, so we have several, or one card, ideally several cards palmed in the right hand, and now we apparently go into a multiple cut of the deck. So you start to cut the packets on the table, and it's in the first action that the palm cards are released. So as the first action of the cut coming over, the cards are released, and in approximately the same way of moving the hand, the rest of the deck is cut on top of the bottom cards which have been replaced. So these are a few thoughts on how to replace palm cards on the bottom of the pack. In this next section, I would like to discuss a big topic which deals with side steals and side slips. Actually, there's a confusion of terms in the literature, unfortunately. The side steal or the side slip refers to a card being controlled from the center, anywhere from the center of the deck into the right hand or the left hand. The same technique can then be applied sometimes to the top and the bottom card as well, but its original use is to steal or to shift a card from the center of the deck, either into a full palm, that's when you talk about a side slip, or where it is somehow clipped but not fully palmed, and then controlled normally to the top, sometimes to the bottom, and occasionally to some other position that is desired. So let's look at the basic technique used in the side steel, and which is also going to be very useful in some other techniques. Now, we start from a break. How we get the break, that's another question. It can be a peek technique, where we have a card looked at. We can dribble the cards, have a spectator call stop, and then pick up a break from here. We can insert the card diagonally and obtain a break. That's another matter. We won't look at that at the moment. We are only concerned with a break above, in our case, let's take the 8 of spades. The deck is only for a moment touched or squared or handled or tickled a little bit, and in this action the central card is brought to the top. Now, in order to do this, we need to overcome several problems. The first problem is we need to shift this packet to the side in a rather obvious way and need to cover that. So perfect cover can be obtained if the deck is held in the traditional dealing grip with the left thumb on the left side. When the right hand comes on top, I'm going to exaggerate the move, the fingers of the left hand lower the cards beneath the break, and at the same time the ball of the thumb pushes to the right. So if this is done correctly, this is how it looks. There's nothing to see really. But if I remove the hand, here is what I have. First I have a gap about that big, and second I have a step about that big. So that needs to be covered by the left thumb. So you have to practice that for a while to get into this situation. And from the outside, of course, nothing or not much should be visible. So if you have this situation, this is really what you have. Here is where you insert all the fingers you can. So depending on the length and the size of your fingers, normally this would be the little finger, the ring finger, and the middle finger. And with their tips, you touch the face of the face card of the upper packet, and simply, when in a slight moment, in a slight motion, push them out. But most of the pushing out is a negative pushing out, in the sense that it doesn't move, but you move the upper packet back. So these are the mechanics. The packet is moved out, the break is opened, the fingers are inserted and touch the card. Only very slightly do they move out, and 90% of the pushing action is done by pushing the other packet back. So if I do this like this, I get that out in a second or so, and the position the jogged card gets is in a slightly angled position like this. That this angled position, as a consequence, has that there is a corner that comes out from the inner end of the deck. This corner can be felt and is grabbed by the right thumb. So now I can have a diagonal pressure between the little finger and the thumb. Now this diagonal pressure will allow me to move the card quite freely inside the deck, like so. Now, two things happen at the same time. First of all, the hand moves to the right, and as soon as the card leaves the deck, a very slight push of the left fingers move the card like an elevator to the top. If you look from this side, let's repeat the movement from this side. Once you are in this position, you go like this, very slow motion. You can angle the deck a little bit, which I'm not doing to not obstruct the view, but you can angle the move a little bit. Come like this and replace on top. Now the neat thing about this technique is that the right hand never needs to leave the deck in order to bring the card to the top. So in other words, you don't need to go out with the hand and come back. So look at that. We go doing this again in slow motion. The card comes out like so. When I start the squaring action or the moving action, and I'm that far, that's already enough for the left card has already left the deck, you see? It's already left the deck, and I'm still intuitively holding about a quarter of the pack. Now you don't need to be worried about too much angles, because the whole move takes place in less than a second, and there is excellent misdirection and cover, physical cover also by the deck and by the hands. Just going to look at that in a second. So again, pushing this out like so, and then without leaving the deck, I'm already ready to put it on top. But I can also put it on the bottom, because once I'm here, giving a slight pressure on the card, a diagonal pressure, will result in this situation, and that brings our card to the bottom. So it's a beautiful way of bringing a card from the center to the bottom. And with the same, exactly the same mechanics, we can bring one or several cards from the bottom to the top. Actually, that's the thing I use this side steal technique most of all, to avoid a double undercut. So it's beautiful. If you have only one card, just slide it out and then go into the side steal action. If you have several cards, it's as easy. Just lower a little bit the packet and extend the fingers, very minimal movement, and you have them in the necessary position to be easily and elegantly transferred to the top in an innocent-looking squaring action. There are a few ways to facilitate getting the card into the required position. So one possibility is what I call the actus interruptus side steal. That's having the card selected to begin with a dribble, for instance. Please take the card. The spectator will take the card you stopped me at, and then you replace it. When you replace it, I just put it a little bit, just over the edge, or I can even say, please remember your card. I get into that situation, and then I come back. Before I come back to square the card and say, and don't forget the card, right? Then as I come back and the card is sort of loose, and the two packets join each other, the card sort of shoots directly into a position like so, whether it is stopped by the side of the hand. So that brings the card directly into the position for the side steal. I can wait for a moment and in a natural action bring it to the top. So another method to facilitate the pushing out of the card comes by Gordon Bruce, courtesy of Gordon Bruce from Scotland. It's a wonderful idea. He will do the peak selection, say, would you please say stop whenever it pleases you? And when the spectator says stop, you put the finger on the index so the spectator can't really see the card. So you say, oh, I can't see the card. So, oh, sorry. And you pull this up. So when you pull this up and you pull it back, of course, you're in automatic position to get into the side steal, and it will be as easy as pie to get it to the top. So that were a few thoughts on the basic side steal mechanics. Now let's look at different application. Here is an idea that comes again from Edward Marlo, and it's a clip side steal. And it's done in a situation where I say, sir, would you please be so kind and put your finger on top of the deck? And this action, the card has been stolen and replaced on top. So it's how it happens. The card, rather than being clipped, as we've seen before, will be clipped between the little finger and the ring finger. So all you have to see is that it doesn't extend. once you're in this position, it's not so good. So you go back until you can't see the card anymore, but you still have control over the card, and that's your clip hold. That's your clip palm. So, and with that, again, we have a card in the center. With whichever strategy we have looked at before, we get it out into the position for a side steal. But rather than clipping it diagonal, we only clip it with the little finger. And here, any type of gesture, I will turn over here, like I did before, will be useful by saying, "Sir, would you please be so kind?" Now, if I do it from here, I go, "Sir, would you please be so kind?" It's perfectly covered. I can even do this with an audience around you. Just go over there and, "Sir, would you please be so kind?" And then go back. There's a perfect position to seize the deck and end grip, take it and put your finger on top. So that's the Marlo clip steal. Now, the reason I discussed it is this demonstrates that you can take everyday actions and find a way to integrate the slide into them. So again, you can put up a list of several actions you're using with a pack of cards in the context of a specific trick, and see if it's possible to put the slide into that action, because that will be the perfect cover for this slide or any other slide. So this was the Marlo clip side steal. Let's look at a few ways of effectively covering the movement, the little movement necessary for the side steal. Now, first of all, I will repeat that we need to bring the hands together, and there needs to be an outward reason for that. So it's the same that we have discussed with the palm, spreading the card, fanning the cards, spreading them on the table, etc. So all of this goes. Now here's an effective cover for the side steal. The card is being brought into the required position, and now we're ribbon spreading the deck on the table. Now look, this is maybe one of the very best movements. You go like this. It's the movement to the left. When that starts, it is a little bit faster than the movement of the right hand. So the deck, so to speak, moves away from the card rather than the card moving out of the deck. Of course, that's beautiful, because the working hand, the dirty hand, is not doing any dirty work. We are delegating the dirty work to the other hand. So it's there you are. So you go like this, and you go like this, and you spread. So that's a very effective cover. Another very effective cover, it's a very small movement, and I'm told Michael Skinner used that a lot. Let's use a little riffle of the cards. So it can be done in a pronounced way, it can be done in a casual way, but that gives a little outward appearance to an otherwise no move. So it's a nice idea, I think, that can be used here. Simply riffle the deck once or twice, and that will obliterate the memory of the 2 seconds which went before and which consisted in extracting and replacing the cards. That's a very important concept that can be applied to other moves as well. Yet another movement which I remember was attributed to Malini or to Nate Leipzig is to riffle the deck against the ear. So the same dynamics than we've seen with the table ribbon spread, go up to the ear, and as we go up, the palm card follows up a little slower, and the deck is replaced as you say, I can hear your card is probably a red card, or whatever fits in the context of the trick you perform with that. So these are 3 covers which are very effective. Actually, you could come up with a list of a lot of covers. Yet another situation you can use to cover up the side steal. You get that into position for the side steal, and now address a spectator. And as you reach for him, give him the card. Again, you have the same dynamics and say, sir, would you please be so kind, and shuffle the deck. So these or any other movements you can come up with will help effectively hide this minimal movement necessary to transfer the card from the center to the top or to the bottom. So these were a few covers for the side steal. Let's now look at the variation of the side steal, which we dubbed the side slip. So in difference to the side steal, which steals the card to a position, we want this card into a full palm. So we start out with practically the same mechanics as we've seen with the side steal. So with some method or another, we have obtained a break under the card to be stolen. With exactly the same method that we've seen with the side steal, we bring it out of the pack into this side jocked, angled side jock position. But in order to get it into the palm, the fingers of the left hand and give it this already side jocked card a little push. Not much is required, and it is already in position to be palmed. Now the difference in respect to the side steal is how to get the deck out of the way or how to get the card into the full palm. Now again, this concerns different covers, and different covers can be that I give the pack to a spectator. That's actually one of the very best, because I take the deck and just move away. Like, sir, would you please be so kind and shuffle the pack, and the right hand just stays in place, moves a little back, falls to the edge of the table, and automatically the card will get into a full palm position. Again, we can adapt everyday situations, everyday gestures to the cover. For instance, we can say, please concentrate on your card. So in this movement, the card is extracted. Or again, let's assume we have the card again ready to be palmed, and we need a good excuse to say, sir, would you come a little bit closer, and would you come a little bit closer? So that's another gesture. Or the same as I say a little bit closer, I can have an object on the table, preferably on my left, so I can turn like this, and I can just take it and put the deck there, give it to a spectator. Would you please take this? It contains a prediction. Would you shuffle the pack? All these situations allow for elegant and imperceptible side steal. If we do not want to use any of these actions, let me just spend a few words on how to extract the card without too visible finger movement. Now the two techniques, first of all, we leave the fingers of the left hand open to begin with. That is, they are kept held like that rather than that, which means that when the card is being extracted in whatever situation we use, the fingers don't even move because they have been stretched out to begin with. And the other way is to get around the limitations of the fingers by going upward with the hand. And let me show you this like this, pushing upwards with the card until I get it in the full palm position, and then go up. And as I press, the card goes, you can see from here, the card goes along the deck. It's sort of in this position, along the deck and along the fingers, and you can do a gesture like this, or go with the thing, or steady the tie, or any upward gesture will be practical to use in this context. So this was the side slip and some of the possibilities of covering it. Let's next discuss an infamous slide, the diagonal palm shift by Erdnase, published 1902 in the Expert at the Card Table. It's actually a misnomer. We're not doing any kind of shift. We're doing a kind of side steal or side slip, because we are bringing the card, the stolen card, into a full palm. So this is how it looks in one squaring action. The card is brought out of the deck and into the palm of the right hand. Let's look at the mechanics of the slide. So The way it was originally described by Erdnase was in one single movement, the card is pushed in diagonally and then immediately pulled through the deck. The card would turn on the thumb and on the little finger like so, and then brought into the palm, which required the fingers of the left hand to reach out and grab the card. So it was almost impossible with the version described by Erdnase to cover that. The grabbing motion would only very few people could do that. Takes years of practice. Then Vernon, as so often happened, came up with a beautiful idea which consisted in breaking the steel in two moments, and the moment is a squaring action. So the first moment that happens is introduce the card into the pack, and I recommend introducing it in the lower half. That makes the move considerably easier. The second, the insertion of the card must be done in one movement. It's the forefinger that leads the corner, do this in slow motion, around the corner of the deck to this position. That's where the left thumb can take over the protruding corner of the card. Now on the other side, we have this situation and this situation of the fingers. So let's see that again. Movement number one, apparent squaring movement number two, and now comes this first squaring action, which is this, 1 and 2. So this moves the card from here, from this position, to here. That means that when I go forward a moment later, the card is already in this position, and it will be much easier to now swivel it into the palm without movement whatsoever of these fingers. And once it is here, the left hand just needs to close in a natural way as the right hand moves either forward to give the deck or replaces it back. So that's an ideal management. Let's do this in slow motion. An ideal management is this first squaring, is this, bring it immediately back over the card and rest the deck on the palmed card. Let's look at this from the side again. In slow motion, comes in, we have the first squaring move, we have this, and this goes into the palmed hand. Let's look at it from this side. And this is the diagonal palm shift from Erdnase's expert at the card table. Let's look at the various ploys to be used in connection with the palm. Now, first of all, a palm-to-palm transfer. So we have a card in one palm, and in an action, we transfer the card to the other hand. Now, this is coupled with an interesting anecdote that is being told in the third edition of Expert Card Technique, 1950, in the section reserved to the magic of Vernon. So apparently Vernon was performing in a social situation, had a card palmed, and the host comes and says, "Oh, Vernon, please shake hands with Judge Harbour." And the anecdote tells that Vernon, in hindsight, didn't remember how he transferred the card. He only realized that he had a card palmed, and somehow he must have transferred it to the other hand, but he didn't remember how. So he started to think how he would do that. And that's the method he published, he came up. This hand washing action as a hand rubbing action that would in the process transfer one card to the other one. I did it slightly different, but here are the mechanics of the move. The card starts out in classic palm. The hands come together. You can start like this. It can be like this. Depends if you're standing or sitting. But this is a very nice starting position because the other hand covers the palm card effectively, and you already have the two hands together, right? So this can be a gesture. And now the hands are turned, so it's almost like a prayer position, just for a fraction of a second. And that's here where, with the slight pressure of the left hand, the card is taken over. So there is no real, it's only a friction thing really. This is taken over, and it goes like this. And the card is in the left hand classic palm. So do this in slow motion. We come in the interim moment, do like this, do like that, and you go like that. So again, after the transfer, the hands could be held like that, or the hands do something. There are different ways to, of course, manage that. Vernon used to combine this with the diagonal palm shift. You know, he would slap the deck there, he would make a gesture, then change the stolen card to the right hand, and then come over, slap it, and say your card comes to the top. And if you did that face up, you know, like this, and did the diagonal palm still from here, and then do the palm and go like, and the card would sort of pop face up onto the deck. So Vernon would demonstrate that in his famous lectures. So now you can think about different ways of justifying the hands to come together. I thought you can also have a thoughtful position. It's like, okay, your card is, let me think, it's a red card, right? And if you're sitting, like I'm sitting here, you see very naturally, it comes very natural to actually drop the hand onto the thigh rather than onto the edge of the table. I mean, nobody tells us that we are not allowed to go like this for a moment. I mean, it's not very good, certainly, to stay there for a whole time. But for just a moment, to do that, that's a perfectly acceptable situation. Here's another palm-to-palm transfer. Also, Vernon came up with that when a gambler challenged him to find a way to transfer a palm card from one hand to the other. Do we still have time for that? Yes, I think it's going to take about 3 seconds, yes? And so this is the transfer of a palmed card from the left to the right hand. Now, originally it was done with the gambler's flat palm. This is a palm which is a beautiful palm, and magicians, we use that not often enough. That the gamblers use this, the card cheats use it quite a lot, because it allows them to hold the hand in a quite natural position. When they are sitting, you can do some actions with it, you can move chips with it, you can have it at the edge of the table. So the gambler's flat palm is really a good palm. And so it started out with the gambler's flat palm. And as the hand comes to look at the watch, to help look at the watch, the card is angled slightly like so, where the little finger engages in the card, and with the aid of the thumb, you can't really do this very slowly. Look at that. Here. Go to this here. So when the little finger engages, and in a smooth movement, takes the card with it, and the thumb fixes it immediately again into a flat palm position. Now I noticed after doing this for a while that you can do this perfectly well from a standard magician's classic palm. So whichever way you classic palmed a card, and it can be done with several cards, just hold it in standard classic palm position, go over this looking at the watch position, and now do exactly the same thing as if it was in gambler's flat palm. Engage the corner with the little finger, use the thumb on the other side, and bring it to the flat palm. Now, a very good way of using this is, for instance, to replace a card. So if you palmed off a card, you're there, and the deck has been handed back because it's been shuffled. You go, oh, this is going to be a fast trick, and just grab the pack and replace it. Even better if you have a small packet, it's even faster and more natural. I would like to say that the movement of looking at the watch should be conditioned before. So I prefer to do something like first say, oh, this might not take too long, this piece, then do a few things, and now you get your card into the bottom palm position, and then you say, actually, 3 seconds will be enough, and you got into position and do the transfer. Let's next talk about a few palm transfers and how to get palmed cards into the pocket. Now, this is a beautiful idea which has originally been conceived by Norm Horton. Norm Horton had the idea of, he called it pocket extraction, to extract the card from the breast pocket, like so. And Scotland's Gordon Bruce had the beautiful idea of adapting that to extracting the card from a trousers pocket, which we're going to look at in just a second. Now let's first look at the Norm Horton shirt pocket extraction. The card is in classic palm, and it looks as if only the forefinger and the thumb were going into the shirt pocket. In reality, on the cover of this innocent-looking action, the palmed card is stuffed into the pocket. So let's look at it again in slow motion. The hand comes up. If you have a coat, you will obviously have to either remove the lapel, move the lapel aside, or you can of course go directly to the breast pocket, right? So, but let's assume you're just wearing a shirt. Go like this, come up, insert the forefinger, and just a second before this corner hits the opening of the pocket, you can hear a light click. You go down, and it's the ball of the thumb that shows the card completely into the pocket, and afterwards you can go like that. I mean, I think it's really a beautiful movement. It's very deceptive. Say, oh, let me see. Here's the card. Now let's see how Gordon Bruce adapted that to the trousers pocket. Now any trousers pocket will do. I like this classic cut, but you can also do it with the 5-pocket jeans. And we have exactly the same mechanics. Go like this and take the card out. So a good ploy is to load the card into the pocket and now not take out the card, but the car keys or a handkerchief or whatever could be in the pocket, and then in a second moment or even a third moment go in and only now extract the card. And this was the Norm Horton Gordon Bruce pocket extraction move. Let's look at another way of producing a card from the inside pocket of a jacket this time. This is a combined idea of Di Vernon's, Tommy Dowd, and Ed Marlo. And here's how it looks. I think I have a card in my pocket here, which is your selected 5 of hearts. So this is a way of transferring a palmed card. So rather than going into the pocket with the palm card directly, which you can always do, of course, as we did with the shirt or as we did with the pocket just a few seconds ago, you can also transfer the card. Now just let me make one comment if you go directly to extract the palm card. If you do it that way, and keep it in the, so to speak, in the extension of the hand, a clever person could think, could associate the hand with the card. So it's a good idea. Look at the difference. If you go like this, to come out like that, so to have it at right angle to the hand, and it's very hard to think, that this card here could have been hidden in this hand. It's a small thing that makes a big difference. So let's look at the pocket transfer move by Di Vernon, Tommy Dowd, and Ed Marlo, which goes like this. The hand with the palmed card opens the lapel, sort of facilitating the left hand to enter. So of course you turned a little bit to the left, making comments always with the best reason and most natural reason to turn any way you need it. You say, and by the way, sir, I must say, whatever fits in the context of the trick. You go like this, and this is the grip on the jacket. Simply, the palm card goes around the edge of the lapel, and when I turn over like this, and the hand starts coming in, these fingers simply push the card in, like so. This hand grabs the card and puts it already in the pocket, and that happens in this moment. So when I open the jacket, this hand is left still. It still looks as if it had a distance. It gestures there, and now this allows me to go in and extract the card in a second moment. Now, if you're worried about, like I have here, like a button or something like that, you can cheat a little bit by putting something inside. So you take whatever paper towel or something you have, or your pocket handkerchief, just ball it up like that, and you can put it in like this. This will nicely keep the edge of the pocket open. It's very easy to drop the palm card into the pocket. Now here's still another way of transferring card, which is really a clever idea, and it is, I have in my pocket, let me see, oh no, sorry, I think it's the other one. In this pocket, here is the 5 of hearts. So here's what happens. Again, the card is palmed in the right hand, but we do a transfer. So first go over here as if I, was searching the card. As I go in, apparently, I can't find what I'm looking for. What happens is that the card immediately is clipped by the fingers of the left hand. So it just in a direct way, transfer that to the left hand. I turn, again, I'm in this position. I just go with the hand across the body. This is not really a palm that has a name. It is simply gripping, clipping the card like so. And that's the idea is to cover it from view. That's the purpose of the whole thing. Otherwise, this is so fast. The movement is so smooth, and nobody will look at the exact position of the hand. Now, once it's over there, you can extract it directly from the pocket or use the ruse we just explained a few seconds ago. That is, insert the card into the pocket, drop it there, open up with the right hand. Again, if you like, make a gesture or a comment, go back, and then fully extract and clearly, innocently extract the loaded card. So that's one more crossover palm exchange that will load a card into the pockets in a beautifully deceptive way. And here's a little thing that can be very useful in context with a palmed card. It's called a Useful Aquitment, and comes from Paul Lee Paul's book, The Card Magic of Paul Lee Paul. So assume you have a card palmed and you want to afford some extra cover or cover it for a few seconds more. Here it's very useful, and say, your card has been lost somewhere in the pack. So that's what Lee Paul called a useful aquitment. A useful aquitment. Funny. And you turn the hand like so, as you spread the cards at the same time into the fork of the thumb. And if that's well coordinated, you can turn a little bit to a spectator to the left to do the initial movement. That's a wonderful cover. You can do it with several cards. Actually, I remember Bernard-Erdnase has a nice application. He palms 2 cards, and now you can buckle a card and you can feed a card into the 2 cards, thus resulting in a sandwich. The sort of the 2 cards which have vanished before have now caught the selection. So it's It's a neat move by Paul called the Useful Aquitment. This ends our session about the palms, the side steal, side slip, and various other uses of the palm. And I hope you will find something that inspires you to study this difficult, challenging, but also most rewarding branch of technical card magic.